We're just about ready to get started. People are still signing on. But I'd like to introduce Valerie. Valerie Camiso is Vice President of Membership and Marketing at MSNY. And Valerie, your microphone is still muted.
Can you hear me now, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Valerie Camiso. I'm the Vice President of Membership and Marketing at the Medical Society of the State of New York, or MSNY, as we call ourselves. For those of you who may not know, MSNY is the only professional association that represents all physicians in New York State. We provide access to practical resources and to a strong community of professional peers. By being the voice of New York physicians, we promote quality, accessible, and affordable physician-led healthcare. We help you connect, engage, influence, and learn. So if you or your physician is not already a member, I really encourage you to join at msny.org.
Please enter your access code.
We understand how busy you are, so today's presentation will be about 20 to 25 minutes. And after that, we'll take a few questions. You can post your questions right in the chat during the meeting, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. And I really do urge you to ask questions and engage. MSNY works with many partners who've been carefully vetted on your behalf. Today's webinar is presented by our partner, STI Computer Services. Today's presentation is entitled Cybersecurity, Locking the Back Door. In 2022, there have been bad actors that have come up with new attack methods, and of course, they've adjusted their tactics to circumvent prevention methods. So today we'll be covering those threat trends, including ransomware, geo-targeting phishing, vulnerabilities in the Internet of Things, mobile security, regulations, and prevention. So let me introduce you to today's speaker, Al Toper. Al is STI's Director of Technical Services. He is also an Air Force veteran with over 40 years in the technical field. He's with us today to inform you about the new attack vectors and the things that you can do to prevent from being the next victim. I also just learned that Al was born in Argentina, a company I just returned from a few days ago. And boy, do they love their soccer or football. It was fun being there during the World Cup. And Al, maybe you can help me get that Lionel Messi jersey because it was impossible to buy while I was there. In any event, it's all yours, Al.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Yes, I probably have about 2 or 3 up in my dresser upstairs, so I'll try to send you one out. Thank you for joining us. As Valerie said, yes, I've been in IT over 40 years, and I've been fighting these cyber criminals for a long time. It was kind of funny because back in the early days, viruses have been around for a long, long time. The original viruses that were out there were not the malicious. They were really like kids that would programs, that your computer would display a happy birthday to them or something that was really unmalicious. So as soon as the internet came out, those things started to get into the hands of criminals, and that's where we're at today. So as Valerie said, we want to start going. I'm going to go over a couple subjects with you today. Ransomware. Many of you know that is when they lay a virus or gain entry into your system. They encrypt your files and then try to get you to send them some Bitcoin to get your files unencrypted. That stuff has gotten more complicated than just as basic as I just explained it, and more malicious. I want to go over geo-targeting phishing, and that's basically just if you've ever heard the term of geo-marketing. So like when you go out on Google and you search something, like say you search for a car model, all of a sudden you start getting ads from the local car dealerships in your area. So they're targeting you because where you're at and what you've searched. There's vulnerabilities in IoT. So the Internet of Things is those things that we're adding to the internet every day onto your network, and that's your doorbells, your security cameras, now even appliances are getting attached to the internet, and those things are not as secure. we're standardizing. You're seeing probably a lot more of this. They're standardizing on multi-factor authentication. It was always a hassle to log into your computer, remember these passwords. Now the standard is going to be that you need to have at least two ways of getting in before you're allowed access. And of course, mobile security. Phones are being added a lot more than computers. Computer sales have kind of leveled out. They continue, but on a much slower pace. Phones, much faster. A lot of phones being added to the internet, and the hackers know this, and now they're starting to go after them. And then, of course, we have the industries and the government that are going to be continuing to give us tighter cybersecurity regulations. And of course, we have to, employees are being restricted and in many cases should be. All right. So the trends, ransomware. As I said, ransomware has gotten more sophisticated. It keeps getting more dangerous. So in the old days, in the original ransomwares, the criminals would get into your system, they'd encrypt all your files, and then ask for some money to get your password, the password to unencrypt those files. The new guys are getting really tricky. What they're doing is, and you can imagine this if you're storing the data at your office or your practice, that they get into the system. The first step they do is they get a copy of all your files and they load them out to the dark web onto a server. Then they encrypt your files and then they extort you for the password. So what happens is if you don't pay the extortion, because there's people, if you use a company like ours, we're backing up systems throughout the day. So my strategy has always been, if you get ransomware, I'm going to take you back to the most recent backup from when that issue occurred. So that was great. It worked for us. We've had a practice that it wasn't too many. There hasn't been too many, thank God, because we have so many other tools on there. But there's been ones that have been encrypted, and we have just taken them to the last backup. 15 minutes, a half hour, worst case scenario the night before, and then you're good. Unfortunately, now you can do that and restore your system, but then they say, well, you don't pay me. I'm going to release all your PHI out to the world. So it's gotten a lot scarier. So more proactive measures got to be in place. Backing up data, like I said, is no longer enough. So we have to train our staff on all these different attack vectors. Geo-targeting phishing. Right now, the number one ransomware attack is via email. There's others. They can get in through your firewall and through people stealing passwords and stuff like that. But there's over 300 billion emails sent per day. And the statistics say 1 in 99 is a phishing attempt. And that is when they send you an email and it may look real. I put this example in here because I know this is one that has happened in other locations. Say for example, the pizza place up the street from your office that you guys order from all the time sends you an email and there's an attachment on it and it says, "Hey, check out our new menu." And you immediately just click on it because you order from them all the time. Well, that's because they know you guys are local to that place and they may send that same email to every business they can get in that local area. So, you know, it, people can be fooled very easily. So it's really difficult. So what you got to do is you got to train your staff. That staff member gets that email, I would hope they would call the pizza place and say, "Hey, did you guys send me the new menu?" It takes 2 minutes to make that phone call and they'll they'll tell you, "Oh, no, we haven't sent out any emails." You've been phished. So really, you need to train them and don't trust anything. I mean, I am really, I have a security officer. So a lot of times I'll send him an email because I'm getting emails from vendors all the time. So if I'm not sure or if it's got an attachment, um, I don't click on it. The other thing is if you get an email from someone and this is a big one that's used for phishing, is you'll get something from, say, Amazon and says, "Hey, we've noticed, unauthorized activity. Can you click on this link and sign in and make sure you're not?" Don't click on the link in an email. If it's from a company you do business with, open up a browser and go to their website and log in, because what they're doing is they're going to send you to a fake website that looks just like theirs, but what they're doing is they're scooping up your username and password so they can log in with your information. And don't trust any attachments. When I get an attachment, unless I am expecting it, like I tell you, hey, I'm going to be sending you an email with, with the latest Excel spreadsheet I'm working on, great. But if I didn't and you get it, make a quick text to me or a call to, or not to me, but to the person who sent it to you and say, hey, did you send me an email? It takes a couple minutes, but it'll give you a lot less stress if you do get attacked. Um, IoT. IoT is growing even faster than cell phones. People are adding smart lighting. They're adding, like I said, appliances, thermostats, cameras, all these things. 15 billion items are now connected to the internet, and there's probably a million a day being added every day. So these vendors, they're not like not that I'm a proponent of Microsoft or iOS and Apple where they send out their updates. At least they are looking for vulnerabilities and sending updates. These companies, they may not be as thorough and as proactive. You know, there was a major attack that hit a lot of places, and it was through a camera vendor. So the camera could be reached by these hackers online, and through the camera, they would then get to the rest of the network because the rest of the network is on the same switch and same firewall as the rest of your computer. So the camera gets access, they could have access to everything. So it's really important. You have IoT devices, you need to make sure to have someone or yourself check that any new security updates may have come out, that you get, you do flash them and you do update them. Multi-factor authentication. By now, most of you have used something, if not everything, has multi-factor, meaning you use at least two methods to gain access to your accounts. So so I put it in pretty basic things. It's either something like a password or PIN, something you have, like a smartphone or a dongle or a USB key, or something you are, like facial recognition, fingerprints, retinal scanning. You have to use at least two of these things. Will Makes it a lot more difficult for a hacker if he's able just to get he or she is able to get your passwords. So the standardization of MFA will be everywhere. And here's the thing, even on your Gmail account, you need to set it up. You need to Anything you can do multi-factor, set it up. I am telling you now, it is scary out there. I see brute force attacks happening constantly, and that stops hackers in most cases. There are cases like in India, there's one where the phone people will clone the IEAE number on your phone so that they can do dual factor authentication. Haven't heard about it hitting in the United States yet, but it concerns me. One of the things we have are our phone companies like Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T are pretty secure, and they make you go through a lot before they'll give you any information. So, not to worry about yet, but definitely use two things when you're able to use, two-factor authentication for anything you need that's important. Mobile security threats. Yeah, now as I wrote here, half of internet traffic now comes from mobile devices. So they're pivoting that way and they're going after the mobile devices. So, most of us, I mean, I use my smartphone. I'm connecting into the office with it. I'm using it to get to my bank and to everything else. So you need to go out and get yourself some virus software or malware protection on your phone, just as you do on your PCs. And the other thing is, don't download apps and games without knowing that they're safe. There was just a national thing where Google's Play Store and Apple's App Store have both pulled down a bunch of games that they found were installed with malware on them. So they had they wrote a game for you guys to go and enjoy, and then they added malware onto it so that, they could get this stuff later. It could sit there and wait for much. So most of that stuff has been removed, and they're constantly looking. But you really need to be safe on what you install. And again, get yourself some virus protection for your phones. There's some free ones out there, so there's no reason not to get them. All right, regulations. There's tighter regulations coming out. Cyber insurance, as I've talked about, they're getting smarter. They're in the first couple of years that people started getting cyber insurance. My clients would send me a document that their cyber insurance company gave them that said that must be filled out. So what happened is, the first couple of years, it was one page. It would ask some basic questions. Do you use passwords? Do you, just basic security. They're now, these documents are 10 to 20 pages because they've gotten smarter. They've gotten hit with enough claims that they're trying to protect themselves, which I would too if I ran an insurance company. So now the government is putting out regulations. New York has the DFS that they just released, and other industries are following suit. Not only are we doing these things for these security assessments for cybersecurity insurance, we're also doing them for PCI because you take a credit card at your front desk. We have to do them every year. So practices are going to have to invest more into their cybersecurity and just their data organization practices altogether. It's important that you restrict who can and can't access your data. It's very, most EMRs and most softwares out there will restrict and say, this person can look at these things or could do this, but they can't do this and they can't see this. Does this, front desk person that's collecting the payment need to see, lab results of a patient? Probably not, unless they're the ones that are taking the calls. But, that's what I'm trying to, hopefully, what I'm saying, and trying to, minimally amount of data that they need to see that they get to see. More training. There's a lot of training out there to give to your staff, and it has now become a requirement for HIPAA that you train your staff and update policies on a yearly basis. And then, of course, implement any. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not. There are actually applications out there, and I love this, is that they'll send fake phishing emails to employees and keeping them on their toes. So it'll send an email that looks really valid. Though if they download the attachment or click on the link, it takes them to training. Says you would have gotten us, screwed over. You need to do this training now. So I think everyone should look into implementing something like this. Okay, so the key points I wanted to take from this is the cyber criminals will never go away. They just keep getting more. Um, what's the term? I'm trying to think of the term. They become more dastardly, and they're finding ways to, make money off of us. And here's where it really gets scary. The hackers always used to be these programmers or kids that were computer savants that would write this stuff. Well, now this malware and this ransomware code and tools are available on the dark web. So they're going out and they can just buy this stuff, and it'll come with training to teach them how to implement it. So now your cyber criminals are not just these really smart, geeky guys. They can be just outright criminals that are looking for another way to make a score. So it's just never going to go away. So always be suspicious when using technology. I think I've said that enough. I'm a real suspicious guy. As you saw from the picture at the beginning, I have no hair, and that's from staying up all night worrying about this stuff. Patch all your equipment, not just your PCs. Yes, the second Tuesday of every month, Microsoft puts out their patches, and you should patch your equipment, but you should also patch all your IoT devices, your printers, anything else, or have a company that does it for you. Protect all points of entry. Criminals are getting more creative. Back in the day, they would just try to steal passwords because people would leave their password under their keyboard and stuff like that. They're getting more creative every day. Get yourself an MSP or an MSSP, or some type of IT company. So I'm sorry, MSP stands for a managed service provider, which is basically your old fashioned IT company that went out and got themselves some tools that actually acts in a proactive manner. So they're monitoring your equipment. If they do it correctly, it's almost like you have an IT guy in your office 24/7, just looking for things, patching things, updating things in an automated fashion. Make sure you have virus software. Endpoint protection is everything that protects the endpoints. The endpoints are your PCs, laptops, phones, any devices that are at the end of the line. When you see a network diagram and it has all these arrows going in different directions, the endpoints are the items at the very end of the flow charts. Um, Cybersecurity in your handbooks. It's really important for anyone in healthcare that they have a security document, create it, maintained, make sure their employees are reading them, and they're attesting to that they read them, and that your policies are kept up to date. And then train them at the beginning, but it's got to be on an ongoing basis. So it's really good. So if you ever have the HIPAA police come to your office, if you pull out a thick security document and you show, hey, listen, I've done the training, I have people attesting, they're going to be a lot easier on you if they do find something that isn't appropriate. For example, the IRS, it's been this old, it's a little joke, is that the IRS, if they ever come and audit you, it's almost like you allow them to show them, something wrong so that they believe you that you're an honest person. It might be a little easier on you. So if you show them you're doing everything humanly possible to protect your practice, it's really hard to come at you with a hammer of large fines and stuff. So it's just my suggestion. And then again, there's some newer technologies out there which we're implementing. One of them is MDR, Managed Detection and Response. That is actually what I've done is I have a lot of great technical geeks that work for me and they know everything. But basically, there's these companies out there that are a bunch of ex-hackers, ex-military guys that have set up these companies and they're looking over my guys' shoulders. And they do things that are pretty amazing that I don't really have the automation to do. For example, if they see an administration level ID created on a network out there, they will immediately isolate that computer and then contact us and say, hey, are you guys trying to create an admin ID on one of your clients? And then we go, yes, we are. No, we're not. And then we can investigate. But what happens there is they might destroy that computer they got to, but they can't get to all the other equipment in the office, which is life saving. Okay, some of the things we're doing, we have engineers that are vetting and implementing new tools on an ongoing basis because the criminals keep getting smarter. I need my team to get smarter. So we're always looking at it. In the last year, we've added, so endpoint protection, we have always had endpoint protection in the sense of viruses. But we found there's a lot of people that get hacked are going to malicious sites. So DNS is domain name services, this right here. Oh, sorry. Domain name services is what when you type in www.google.com in your browser, it is really converting that by a name server to 192.17, so to those IP addresses. So what this DNS protection does is it knows these malicious sites and keeps adding them and won't allow people to go to those bad sites. You can also customize it for other things. Remote monitoring. So patch management and remote monitoring need to be done. So we're testing. So what we do is we update Microsoft patches on the second Tuesday, but we don't release them to our customers till Wednesday. That way we have 24 hours to test those patches because Microsoft and even Apple have released patches and then the next day said, oh, we got to release another patch because that one broke stuff. So, your MSP should do things like that. Your staff needs to attend trainings, or I'm sorry, our staff attends trainings and webinars related to cybersecurity. And recently, as I mentioned earlier, we've added MDR to our office and to clients who are willing to pay for it. It's not very expensive, and we're adding it almost on a weekly basis to clients out there. So I think that basically wraps up. And hopefully I didn't talk too fast, but I'm very passionate about the subject, and I have a lot to talk about, a lot more than I could have said. Valerie?
Yes, thank you, Al. Appreciate that. It reminds me of the time I opened an email, and I can usually tell a phishing email, but they were sending me a refund. How could I not open a refund? And of course, it wasn't real.
Yep.
But thank you. Appreciate it. I hope everyone on this call identified some useful takeaways that you can put into action. Once it's ready, we'll get the link to this webinar on the MISNY website. And on behalf of MISNY, thank you, Al, for sharing your expertise and your time with us. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. Again, for those of you who are not members of MISNY, I hope you'll consider joining. We're here to help you navigate your career in business. Our members are a talented and diverse community of physicians willing to share. And I know that we've got some questions that Chris is going to go through.
Okay, the first one, Al, how do you know if apps and games are safe? How can we tell?
Okay. And that happens because I do the same thing. One of the things I would say to do, a couple things, is Google it, and don't just take the first response that's up there that says this is safe. Ask your peers that might use that application. Usually they're the best ways. I mean, I haven't found any other manner other than going out there and doing a little bit of research before I download an app. Hope that helps.
Okay, here's another. If we use our personal phones for work purposes, are we more vulnerable? Does it make a difference?
Yeah, that is a concern. I mean, so there's a thing called mobile device management. Now, my children went to a local high school here that they had iPads. You had to buy them. They didn't give them out. You had to buy iPads. And what was cool was they used mobile device management. When they walked into the school and got into the school's Wi-Fi, immediately all their games and junk disappeared. Only the apps that were used for school were available. As soon as they walked out of the building, got home, those apps reappeared. So mobile device management is something that should be implemented if you're going to be using personal phones in your business. And just basic protection of viruses and stuff like that if you're not willing to make that kind of commitment or don't have the means to make that commitment.
For personal devices, are Norton and McAfee credible vendors?
Yes, in fact, it's funny. So McAfee, and Trend Micro. I personally have been using, just to let you know, I use Avast. It's a freebie. It runs on my phone. They've been around. We used them at one time at the corporate level. We don't any longer for other reasons, not because it was bad, but for other reasons. Um, they're out there, but yes, I mean those are pretty reliable companies. um, I would, I think you're okay with them.
How can I stop my staff from using or going to Facebook or other social sites?
Yeah, that's a good one because we've been implementing that a lot. That was the DNS I was talking about earlier. So not only will, out of default, it will stop you from going to malicious sites if they're known, but if you're willing to have some configuration done, you can set it that certain computers can't get to categories or sites. So, for example, which is kind of difficult, I'll tell you, we when we implemented it, we took out porn. Thought that's a typical one that you would not want, your staff to go to. Guns and weapons was another category. You have to play with it because in the case of medical, you may say, I need to look at a breast, and they might limit sites thinking that the person is searching for porn. Or in the game, the thing with guns, I had a doctor that contacted me and goes, I'm a sports hunter. I can't get to, a Winchester.com. So, you can actually get down to the level of where you say instead of categories is actually websites. I don't want them to get to Facebook. I don't want them to go to, Twitter. But unfortunately, things like YouTube, you have to be careful with because a lot of the trainings send you to a video that's on YouTube. So, there's things like that that have to be talked. So what you do is you work with your IT vendor, you tell them, this is what I want to allow. This isn't what I want to allow. These people, I want them to have full, the doctor and the office manager can have full access, but my rest of my staff are limited. So that's how you do that.
Can you give some guidelines as to how much cybersecurity insurance a company needs?
Yeah, that is based on, there are formulas. You can go out and Google it. There's formulas out there to do that. You kind of base it on that. The other thing you want to do, and this is really important about cyber insurance, some of the cyber insurance policies that you got to make sure you check the policy. Some of them will not cover like the ransom or the HIPAA fines that you may get. They may only cover like advertising in the newspaper that you've been hacked and sending the letters, the cost of sending letters to your patients to tell them you've been hacked. So you got to be careful because someone once contacted me and said, "Oh, cyber insurance is really cheap." And then I was like, "Really?" Because I know a lot of people are complaining it's expensive. And I looked at their policy, and their policy really wasn't going to help them that much.
Are there any companies that can test my network or provide ongoing monitoring or training?
Yes, companies such as ours, but there's also companies that do penetration testing. So in our case, we work with third parties, like I was telling you about the MDR, so they can certify. So it's not me, the government or whoever's might uh, handle the breach. They don't just trust me saying, "Oh no, I'm protecting them, they're protected." So I have a third party. So there are third parties out there that will do penetration testing, and it is becoming it's one of the um, requirements of DFS and New York's newest cybersecurity law, which I don't think affects medical yet. It's really in the financial industry, but it will. I'm sure they'll put. I know New York pretty well, and I think they'll be pushing it to medical at some point.
Is there a foolproof way to secure my network?
Yeah, there is no, I am sorry, I'm the Grim Reaper here, but there is no foolproof way. If you can, what you want to do is protect yourself from the spiders out there. When I say spider, there's programs that are out there that they wrote that are going out and just wiggling through the internet trying to find an opening, a way. But if there is someone out to get you, imagine a disgruntled employee or something like that that can give to their hacker, girlfriend or boyfriend your password and IP address, and you're never 100% protected. I'm sorry, but I just can't imagine it ever being. I used to think until I saw it around all around me, and people like the United Kingdom's medical or NASA being hacked. If these guys with billions of dollars can't 100% protect themselves, how can small businesses like us, and you guys do that? Any other?
Here's a last one, Al,
Sure.
and I'm not sure what this person means, but they say, can you put up the slide about cell phones?
Sure. Let me see if I can go back. I went back too far. Geo cyber vulnerabilities. IoT. Here it is. It, it's just, people like, really are good with taking care of their office networks and don't think much about their phones. So, that's all I'm just trying to portray. I'll leave that up there.
Okay, I think that's about it, unless anyone else has another question.
Well, thank you again, Al, and thank you, Chris, and everybody else for your continued support. I hope to see you at the next program in the new year. It'll be on January 11th, and the topic will be a timely one. It's all about the 2023 coding changes that you will need to become familiar with. So thanks, everybody, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.